What's happening, guys? Happy Tuesday. Yeah, that's right. Back-to-back Tuesday shows here at the Dynasty WarZone. Today's topic is Australia's favorite 2023 Dynasty rookie picks. And if you haven't guessed, my co-host tonight is not the affable Jerry Sinclair. It is one of my oldest friends, and I use that word in the most sincerest form. His name is Greg. He is one half of the Aussie guys. We call him G. But it's just a great opportunity for me to catch up with my old pal G. What's up, man?
Hey, Memphis, how you going, dude? Well, I call you Randers, so
You do. You and Sheps. You and Sheps,
yeah.
former co-host and host of the Toilets of Titles podcast. You guys do call me Randers, but what's going on in the land of Australia?
Mate, we're just getting ready for winter, mate. Weather's turned. It's going to be a pretty painful next 6 months or so here. But, mate, every time I come on, which is not often, but when I do, never Jerry. Is like I don't. Is this a Michigan thing?
You know, I don't want to take up for Jerry because for those of you that are watching on our feed, good friend of the show, Theo Grimminger. Theo is now the head of podcast and content over at Player Profiler, which is how Jerry and I wound up over there. Jerry, he said the same thing. G, he's like, every time I come on the show, Jerry's not there. Let me tell you a secret that's really more on me than Jerry. Jerry has got a much more busier professional life than me right now. So it's easier for me to sneak away and do this second, third podcast of the week.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, these people could listen to me talk about fantasy football by myself, and I'm happy to talk about football by myself because I like myself a lot. But I thought to myself, why not go get some of my friends? Why not go get G? Why not go get Theo, Dan Williamson, all these great people that have joined me this offseason. So it's not really on Jerry. Jerry's doing the best Jerry can. I'm the one who's being selfish because I want to do more podcasts with more cool people like you.
No, that's great. And mate, like you, if you don't love yourself, who else is going to love you? You can't expect other people to do it for you. You got to do it all yourself. It's got to start with you.
Dude, some people will tell you self-love is a bad thing, maybe even a sin. I don't agree. I don't agree.
But it gets you through a few, teenage years, I can tell you.
100%. So we're going to get in.
Also after being married for like 20 odd years, just quietly.
Yeah, man, you ain't a kid. And so see, it's no different in Australia than it is here in the States. But we're going to get into some of G's favorite rookies, some of his takeaways from the NFL draft this past weekend. But I just want to make sure to cover a couple of things from a location standpoint. If you're listening to this on a podcast on Tuesday, there's going to be another podcast on Wednesday and maybe on Thursday. But you could have had all of these early. This podcast that you're hearing in podcast form was available on Monday night. The show we did on Player Profiler on Sunday night, you had to wait until Wednesday. So if you're just a podcast lover and you enjoy podcasts to get you through the day, I know if depends on like your cellular plan, streaming on YouTube can burn up a lot of data. But if you have a good Wi-Fi connection, I'm telling you, there's nothing better than catching a show live because you never know what was edited out. But if you're watching it live, all the stumbles, all the curse words, everything that you don't get in the podcast was live on YouTube because it's radio, it's television without a net. So you should be subscribed to Player Profiler's YouTube channel and the Dynasty WarZone's YouTube channel. And G, do you guys still do YouTube videos? I know you had Waldman on not too long ago.
Yeah, we have. We had a sabbatical last year. Just life gets a bit too busy. I was crazy busy last year. AJ had his things going on, but yeah, we had Matt on because we've been doing that for like 6 years now. So we want to keep rolling with that. And I look to be honest, I don't know what's going to happen this year because last year's rolling seems to be rolling to this year as well. And you know me, man, I haven't got time. I'm taking holidays all the time. I don't do this work thing to just sit at home and accumulate bits of stuff around my house.
You're out there collecting memories.
What's
You're out
that?
there.
Yeah,
You're out there
exactly.
collecting memories. You're not out
Yeah,
there
no
collecting,
doubt.
like trinkets. You're
No,
out
no,
there doing stuff. And
no.
well, we'll put you on the show quite a bit this year, as you're able. I
Okay.
know you
Yeah,
have
mate.
to. You got to work
Yeah.
your boss. Bit of an asshole. I know him.
He's a meh. I can't use those. Can you use those words on here? I'm not too sure. If YouTube might.
100%. You can't demonetize a show that's not monetized.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So you
Yeah,
can say whatever the
he's a
hell you
right
want. I
prick.
mean,
He's a right prick.
yeah, you can call him a cunt if you want to. I mean, we don't care.
No, he's not there yet, but give him time. Give him time.
Well, in case you didn't realize, G is self-employed. That's why. What time is it in Australia? It's about 10:30, 10, 11?
11.
11. It's 11 a.m. So this is in the dead middle of the workday, and G has taken it upon himself to join us for, what'll be about an hour of Dynasty conversation. But I will say we had a really good chat for about 25 minutes before I hit the record button, because that's what we call the podcast we do for our patrons over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. We talked about how to apply business concepts. I've been in leadership/management for well over 20 years. Gee, this guy has managed to keep himself employed. He's doing well. Don't let him fool you. Don't let the tradie talk fool you. He's doing all right. But we talked about, principles of leadership, principles of, being in charge of making sure that things go well, and how we could tie that back to our dynasty rosters. And that's going to be up on Thursday exclusively for our patrons over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. So if that interests you, I highly recommend you head over there and check that out, because it was good to spend some extra time with my man G. But G, what were your initial thoughts coming into the draft, and then how were those thoughts changed once you saw the landing spots?
Look, especially like I like to look at the wide receivers more than the other positions. It's just been something I've enjoyed doing more. There's a hell of a lot of them, I tell you. I spend probably 2 months before the draft starts every night just sitting in front of my computer and looking at these guys. And I was underwhelmed. I think it's the same as everybody was. But when we had Matt on, I found that it's an interesting class, especially the wide receivers, and a little bit at the running back, but and the tight ends I've been watching over the last week, and some of those dudes they're rocking. This is a good tight end class.
I'm not trying.
There are some decent athletes in this class.
I agree. I'm not trying to fall for the banana in the tailpipe that was the tight end class of 2017. For those of you that are newer Dynasty gamers, I know Dynasty is an extremely popular format as it grows. When you get big name content creators like the fantasy footballers and Matthew Berry, when they start talking Dynasty, it really intrigues a lot of what would be seasonal players in this. But those of us that have been playing since 2017, G, we remember the likes of David Njoku, Evan Ingram, OJ Howard, and those are all first-round guys in tight end.
I was sold on Evan Ingram. I thought he was one of the best pass catchers, full stop, coming out.
And really, he's kind of at like the ripe old age of like 27 on his second team in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. He's finally kind of, catching his lick a little bit, but there are also guys like Gerald Everett in that class. That was a really good class. So I'm not trying to go crazy, but the big three for me at the tight end position are Musgrave, Laporta, and then Michael Mayer. What are your thoughts on those guys? Like I said, you're a pass catcher. You're a pass catcher lover at heart.
Yeah, well, my top three, which I've written down, which I did last night, mate. I really like Dalton Kincaid from a pass catching point of view. Like, he catches.
Oh, I forgot about Kincaid. Where's my manners?
Anything within his huge wingspan, he brings down. And he climbs the ladder. He does he's a oversized wide receiver, basically, is what he is. He gets down the field quickly. He's athletic as hell. His body adjustment for a guy his size is incredible. You think you're watching a smaller receiver, and then you look at how big this guy is. Mate, he's physical. He's got everything you want. And then my next guy after that is Michael Mayer. Like Mayer.
You know, Michael Mayer. I'm trying to think like it's Mayer, like John Mayer, the musician, as opposed to Michael Mayer, the serial killer portrayed in the movie Halloween. So think John Mayer, Michael Mayer. It's like Michael Mayer and John Mayer had a kid. It's Michael Mayer. That's the best. Like that's how I function with it.
Mate, and this is another. This dude is different from Kincaid. Like he's still athletic, but man, he plays like he's seriously pissed off all the time. Like he lays hits and he just looks back at the guy he hit and say, mate, you just stay there. It's better for you because you're going to have to do this again and again and again today. Maybe you can rotate the linebackers out and give yourself a break, but I'm going to run over you all the time, all day. I reckon he's great. He's got a second gear. So he was my third. And at the moment, I have Musgrave who went to the Packers. I
had it.
Line. So go on.
No, I saw. So there's a little lag in the stream. Say I have it. Kincaid. Yep. I have it. Musgrave. I like him that much.
Yeah, Meyer, I do like him. Yep.
Meyer, then Laporta.
Okay.
But if I get any of the four, I'm giddy. I'm absolutely thrilled in a tight end premium. You know, which most of my leagues are. I love those four guys. Now, what do you think about Michael? So this hit me on the way home. I was driving home from work, and this was another thought on top of the conversation G and I have already had, was that, do you remember the last big, good blocking tight end that Josh McDaniel had earlier in his career?
No.
You don't remember a guy named Rob Gronkowski?
Oh,
he spent a decade-ish with McDaniel, with McDaniel in that offense, and we've seen Darren Waller really thrive in that offense. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't get sucked in to block a little bit more, but I've heard
tell you a little thing about Waller.
Yes, please.
When he came out and we had Matt Waldman on, I said he should be a tight end. He's not a receiver. If he moved to tight end, he'd be a hell of a lot better. I just pump up my own tires just a little bit on that.
Well, I mean, of course you nailed it because you are you. But what do you think about Michael Mayer in that offense in Las Vegas? That's a pretty interesting team. They brought in Jacoby Myers. They have Devontae Adams. They have Hunter Renfrow. They bring in Myers. Josh Jacobs, not a bad pass catcher. I think that's going to be an interesting offense. And if you're struggling for like a QB 2 or 3 in Superflex, I think Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he could be a play, but let's keep it on the tight ends. What are your thoughts on Mayer, and then maybe anything you got on Laporta?
Mate, I think he's my number 2, but I think the situation he landed in puts him ahead of Kincaid. I just think he's the type of guy that is just going to get peppered with targets, and he's going to earn, and he's going to give you every ball that he gets. He'd probably end up, I'd say, with the situation, if everything works out, he could be the number 1 rookie tight end, as far as fantasy goes at the end of the season. Just what he has to offer, where he's landed. Kincaid obviously lands at the Bills. They're going to probably run more 2 tight end sets now, where even Josh Allen said he wants to get away. He wants to be more of a quarterback instead of using, his size and his running ability, because he's probably looked at someone like Cam Newton, and we all thought he was invincible. And really, for Cam Newton's age, he probably should still be in the league if he was more of a QB. And I think maybe Josh has looked at that and go, well, I want my career to last a little bit longer. I'd like to make a little bit more money if I can. And Laporta?
Yeah, go ahead. Laporta. Give me some Laporta.
Mate, what have I written down here, mate? Physical after the catch. He's not the most explosive guy off the line. But then again, I did watch Kincaid first and then Porter second. So there was a little bit come down with that. He probably hasn't got the wiggle that Kincaid has, obviously. Made strong hands. He gets down, runs down the middle of the field. Just he slows down a little bit on his routes. He's a linear runner, which most tight ends are. Mate, he's great in space. He's great he's a great salesman, is what I wrote down. The way that he can sell where he wants to go compared to what he's telling everybody else he's going to do for his size. Look, he's got good open field speed. Mate, I wrote down here, he is the ultimate chain mover.
I like chain movers. Let me ask you about. I lost my train of thought there. You got me going, and that, see, this is why you got to listen live. I very rarely get stumped on this, but I'm just going to move into the regular questions I sent you.
Oh.
So we'll move away from the tight ends. It's been good tight end talk.
Right.
Tight end talk. So we got to know.
You're setting me up. You're setting me up because we have a history in the Rockolution League where you take guys knowing what I'm going to grab next.
Well, that is both the curse and the blessing of doing content. So I'm just going to put this right out.
Okay.
Who is your most undervalued rookie right now? Now that you've seen the landing spots, the guys that you were like, hey, I was on him before, I'm on him now, but he's not getting love out there in the fantasy or actual NFL, in the actual NFL.
Undervalued. I really like Roshan Johnson at the Bears. I think everybody looks at who's ahead of him. He was the backup to Bajan in Texas. But man, this dude can run, and he'll run over you. He's not dynamic with his movements, but he's got enough wiggle in the open space. I think he's going to go undervalued just because at the moment he's the third guy on that roster. And I've looked at a few drafts that have been going on, and some of them might have gone through. He's going late in the second round, if not early third, in some that I've seen that people have been posting. I'll take that every day of the week, and we know the running back position, how quickly can open up your opportunities. So he'd probably be my most undervalued, the guy that you're not hearing so much about over, the A chains and these speed guys who, speed's one thing, but it's not everything.
I like the point that you made there, that he is third on the depth chart as of today. But look at the guys. I like Khalil Herbert. I said back in January, if you search at DWZ Memphis and then Khalil Herbert, like all in your Twitter search bar, you'll see a tweet that I sent out back in January. I like Khalil Herbert, but this is not the best backfield in the world. I mean, he's not trying to overcome Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Yeah, that's not what he's trying to do in Chicago. And Chicago was the number one rushing offense in the NFL. Now, a large part of that has to do with Justin Fields, but that's a good opportunity. And I would not be surprised with, he's a guy that I comped to Arian Foster when Jerry and I were doing comps on one of our first shows for Player Profiler. I think he's a guy that he's not a great athlete, but he's not a bad athlete. And he's a guy that I like. I actually traded up in a rookie draft today to take him 204. I needed a running back infusion. Yeah, I took him over like Tajay Spears and guys like that. I love the landing spot.
I do think he's undervalued just because who he ran behind at Texas. You sort of get lost. You're the number two guy. Well, why were you the number two guy? Well, Jesus, look who's the number one. Like, who else is you're going to be the number two no matter who you are in this draft. You can be Jamal Gibbs. You're still going to be the number two guy behind Bijan Robinson. It's just the guy you happen to have in front of you.
Well, that's with Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders largely has had a pretty decent fantasy career. He's been an RB1 a couple of times, been a useful guy for the last 3 years. And I'm thinking to myself, why can't that be? Why can't that be Roshan Johnson, a guy who comes in, has some very serviceable years,
Yep.
and really helps our dynasty rosters? But now remember, this is not just for G, this is for the entire continent of Australia. No pressure. Who's the most overrated guy? Who's getting too much love because he landed in a really great spot?
Well, I listened when you had Johnny Sheps on, and I actually texted him after the show. Just I agreed with his take, and Quinton Johnson to me was overrated before, and now he's landed. Like if you put perfect landing spots for someone, he landed in the perfect landing spot. And the problem is I don't rate him highly. Like he's a good receiver, but I think he's got flaws that are going to get shown up once he starts playing the pros. But he landed in a perfect spot, and people are going to see that. They're going to see what he can do athletically, and they're going to bump him up draft boards. He's definitely going to be. Geez, he could be the second wide out. I don't think anybody's going to go over JSN. I will, because I like somebody else.
Sure.
But
now, thanks to our buddy Neil, he's the admin who helps me keep all the patron leagues squared up over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. It was awful sweet of Neil to start all of these. I think he started like 8 of the patron rookie drafts all at once. Like, and I'm in all of them, or like just about all.
You're up on the clock? You're up?
No, well, I'm not. I've been telling him, like, guys, I'm going to check every hour. I'm going to go on the sleeper. I'm going to go through all of these different drafts, see if I'm on the clock. I'm like, I still have to do my day job. I still have to be a dad. I still have to take care of other stuff. So I'm checking every hour. So when I actually make it to Australia, I'm going to give Neil a big hug, because
I'll give it for you. He'll love getting off me.
I love him. But from what I've seen in all these drafts, because they're all at various spots throughout the first and second round, Quinton Johnston, from what I can see, has been primarily the wide receiver 3. From what I saw, what I saw pre-NFL draft mocks, you were seeing a lot of Zay Flowers had snuck up into that wide receiver 3 territory, but that Baltimore landing spot has given people some pause. And because it's that immediate gratification. You know, people just think that because of Justin Herbert, that's a pass first offense. And I hate to agree with the general public, but this is a Kellen Moore offense. They are going to feature a third pass catcher, whether it's the tight end, whether it's Quinton Johnston. There's going to be targets, and I think there's going to be a lot more targets to go around than Zay Flowers. But I can tell you, predominantly, he's been going in that 108 to 109 range, and he's been the third. He's been the third wide receiver off of the board behind JSN and Jordan Addison. I think Jordan Addison, that Minnesota landing spot again, another high volume passing offense where he's going to be clearly the number 2.5. I think he's going to interfere with what Hawkinson has been living on the last 8 games of last year. But yeah, he's going 3. Can I give you a guy that I really loved? I'm not
sure. Before we move off Quinton Johnson, Mike Williams. Who would you prefer to have?
In a dynasty startup, I'd rather have Quinton Johnston, just based off the fact that Mike Williams is always hurt. I mean, going back to college where he broke his neck.
Who's a better receiver? Who's a better receiver? That's a better question.
If I had to go talent, just like skill for skill, it's Mike Williams. But we're going into like year 6. He's handsomely paid.
This is what I'm saying though. You got the same guy, and I think Mike Williams is a better ball catcher than Quinton Johnson.
I think he's going to be a guy who's he doesn't. I mean, I saw him play some slot in college, but his metric profile, everything coming out of TCU just was not next level, especially for a guy.
It's more the fact when you draft, if you throw the ball anywhere here, fantastic. If you make him have to go and use his arms, stretch his arms out, he will do it. If you throw it in here, he's not going to do that. He's going to let the ball come to his body. And the biggest problem I found with him is he's when you play really good basketball players that become football players, they're very aware of who's around them, where they are. Is he on my right side? Is he on my left side? How close is to. He has no idea of where the corner is in comparison to where he is and where to catch the football. So he will let it come to his body more times than not if you throw it at his numbers. If he doesn't have to catch it away from his frame, he's going to let it come to his body. And that shit ain't happening in the NFL, mate. That ball's not getting there. It might have worked for you against the Clarks or whatever you say, the salesmen of the world from the college corners. Mate, they're not happening in the pros.
I'm telling you, I don't know who the quarterback at Oklahoma was last year, but that person couldn't have been worse than Max Duggan, who got TCU to the national championship game. And the guy I was getting ready to ask you about, Marvin Mims, had a better season than Quentin Johnston. Yep. He had just a few more yards, same amount of touchdowns, and I in my opinion, lesser quarterback play.
Yes.
And again, that's my opinion. But Marvin Mims is a guy who I thought got a really good landing spot that he is not getting enough buzz. Because whether you're like, well, Memphis, what about Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton? A, injury issues. B,
yes.
Both of them are one of them is likely to be traded, and messaging matters. Now, does it guarantee something? No, it didn't guarantee anything when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went in the first round to Kansas City. But this is what I do know. This is the first draft pick, not the first offensive skill position player, not the first, wide receiver, the first player chosen by the Sean Payton administration. Yes. Sean Payton. Thank you. And Sean Payton looked around and said, now there's a guy who I need to get in this offense.
Yep.
That has to give you pause. And for me, yeah, they picked up Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option. That still doesn't mean that they couldn't trade Cortland Sutton. They're getting Tim Patrick back. Everything means something. Jay, we were talking about work and tying this back to work. When you leave one company, or maybe your boss leaves the company that you're working at currently and they go to a different company, bosses and people in leadership tend to reach back out to people they trust and bring them into their new job, right? Because they helped make you successful before. You want them around you now, right? That's why I like Mike Gesicki being in New England with Bill O'Brien, because they have a relationship going back to college.
Jonnu Smith being brought into Atlanta.
Jonnu Smith being brought into Atlanta. He worked with Arthur Smith.
Yep.
Adam Troutman being brought into Denver to work with Sean Payton. Now, I want to keep this about Marvin Mims. I love Marvin Mims.
So do I.
Steve Smith, former wide receiver and wide receiver aficionado. Steve Smith has, said a ton of good things about him. The guy had like 2,630 yards in a high school season. Not his high school career, season. So what do you think about Mims? You're my wide receiver guy. What are your thoughts on Denzel Mims? I'm a big Mims guy.
Love him, mate. I do, when I do my evaluations, I write in my pad, because I used to have, thousands of pieces of paper, and it only took me 6 years to realize maybe if I put it in the pad and keep them all together. And I write a little bit at the top, just about each player, just a quick 3-4 word summary. And I just wrote down here, is this another Mims I'm falling for? Because I fell for Denzel. Mate, it must be a Mims thing with me. But, mate, I'm big raps for him. He's a strong hand catcher. He's probably the best at plucking the ball out of the air in this club at speed. Like, he do a crossing route, and it doesn't matter who's going to be throwing. You can have Josh Allen hurling that ball from 15 yards away, and he's going to just pluck it out of the air and keep moving without losing a step. He's not the sharpest of route runners. That's not his gig. He's a speed guy. I saw him more of, I wrote down like he's a floating wide receiver. He just weaves his way through. He's very good at reading the defensive movements, where they're going, where he's watching their hips. Great turn of foot. He's an excellent reader of the ball in the air. Very good catcher when he has to go up and get it. Squares his shoulders back up to the ball, which a lot of these guys don't. They sort of try and catch it on an angle. He'll square his shoulders up, mate, and just nice, soft, natural hands. And I love a good, soft, natural hand catcher. For a position that relies so heavily on catching the football, obviously, because that's your gig, mate, a lot of the guys are jug guys, I find. And to me, that's great. You always got to work at your craft. But if you like you're born as a natural hand catcher, I love those guys you receive, and especially with all the other traits that he has. Big rap.
Well, let me tell you a newfound respect I have for wide receivers. In case you've never seen me, I'm a very stocky, blocky,
powerfully built.
I am fleet of foot, but I'm not fast. I'm quick. I'm not fast. I was
fast.
I was a good wrestler. I was a good baseball player. Football, not so much. So my son plays baseball. I think most of the listeners know that. And one of the strengthening things they have him do to build up arm strength is throw a football, but with the mechanics that you would throw a baseball. Because basically it's a heavier ball, right? It builds up, It's amazing to me that Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, these guys throw a football 60 miles an hour. You have no idea how hard it is to throw a baseball, a 5-ounce baseball, to throw it 60 miles an hour, much less 70, 80, but to throw a football that friggin' hard. So again, back to my son, we throw a football a lot as like a way to warm up on days that we're going to do our throwing stuff, right? And my son, he's not Roger Clemens or a big fastballer, but he's got a pretty good arm on him, and he chucks this football. It's not 60 miles an hour, I can assure you. And when you're trying to hand catch that thing, when you're trying to hand catch a football from someone who can throw even moderately hard, like my son can throw a football, I can only imagine what it's like catching a football from Josh Allen. Or Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. Now add in that it's cold and add in that it's rainy and that your hands hurt. I can only imagine what that feels like. And to see a guy like a Denzel Mims, who's a tremendous, hands catcher of the ball, I have that much more respect for them than I did, say, 6 months ago.
Yep. I've always said that we're brought up here, our sport, football. Mate, if you can't catch it, you're not playing football. Full stop. There's no other position for you to play because we all have to do the same gig. So for us, it becomes more natural. That's why I think I lean towards the wide receivers because there's a lot more in common with our game. Maybe if I followed rugby, I'd be more into the running backs, possibly, or linebackers, those sort of guys. But you got to have good hands, mate. And the more natural, the better.
I have learned no matter the sport, the softer the hands, the better the player. If you're fielding a ground ball in baseball, you have to have soft hands. If you're shooting a basketball, you have to have soft hands. If you're catching a football, you have to have soft hands. You cannot be old brick hands out there trying to body catch stuff. But I have a two-parter for you.
Yes.
Give me a couple of guys that you're going to be targeting. Now, I got my pen right here because, we have our draft. So those watching on YouTube, that's an ink pen. G and I got a draft coming up. I think it's a week or 2 weeks from Friday. So I'm going to be taking copious notes here so I know how to snipe my man here. But he's going to do it for you. He's going to give you some of his best takes here. Who are some of the guys that you're targeting on the offensive side of the ball? You can keep all of your IDP secrets because this is not an IDP show. So who are some guys that you're targeting? But then who's your ride or die? Who's the one guy that you will not be leaving a draft without, even if you got to trade up half a round? So who are some guys that are on your radar, and who is the guy you can't live without?
Okay. The guy that I can't live without. Look, if I can get Trey Flowers, mate. Trey Flowers was my number one wide receiver in this class, and I'm not concerned with him at all. Ending up in Baltimore, but you got a quarterback now that's just got paid. He's happy, so you're going to get a young wide receiver with a quarterback that you know is going to be there for the next 5 years and you can work together. Give me that every day of the week over a guy with a bit more talent, if you think so, that's in a position where God knows what the quarterback's going to be in 12 months' time or 2 years' time. We know what you're getting. So, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to walk away too much with Trey Flowers in my drafts.
Zay Flowers. You're combining,
sorry,
you're combining Trey Palmer and Zay Flowers, kind of what I did earlier.
Trey Flowers, sorry.
Yep.
I'm not going to get away with him too often. So, but he'd be one guy. In tight end premium league, as we spoke about, I really like Kincaid. But if I could walk away with Michael Mayer, I'd be wrapped, because what we already spoke about, landing spot, from the way that he plays the game, this guy is going to be successful.
I'll give you a minute to collect it, because I want to say one more thing about Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
See, we're getting that right now. Yeah. I don't ever want to say Gronk is the ceiling for a guy, because that's a hell of a fucking ceiling to try to get. But I will say I'd say somewhere between Gronk, Kyle Rudolph, Dalton Schultz, guys. He's a better blocker than Schultz, but he's the guy that I think's got tight end 4 or 5 in a given season.
To be honest, Memphis, I don't think we score points for blocking, do we?
Yeah, but blocking gets you on the field, and when blocking gets you on the field, that's what got George Kittle on the field as a young man. So it helps. I do want to say one thing. I wanted to mention this earlier when you mentioned Kincaid. I was listening to the GM Shuffle. That's one of my favorite non-Dynasty but yet still football-related podcasts, and he was talking about Dalton Kincaid. He said, there was talk, and whether you like Michael Lombardi or not, that does not matter. Just know that he's extremely connected, and as a former NFL GM himself, he said that in circles that people he talked to, they said that Dalton Kincaid might be the best pass catcher, period, in this draft. Not the best pass catching tight end, but you could pool all of the wide receivers and all of the tight ends, and Dalton Kincaid might have been the best pass catcher of all of them. Now, that's high praise. Jackson Smith and Jigba is in this class. I get it. But that's how highly thought of Dalton Kincaid is. So I think you're on the right trail. So you like Mayer, you like Flowers, you like Kincaid. No, so those are some good ones. Do you have any more? But who is your guy? Who can I 100% break your heart with by sniping?
Well, Zay Flowers would be the guy if you took him.
You are safe.
This class, like if it fell and Mims was there and you took Mims in front of me, I'd be really pissed. Especially probably where you're going to get him. He's going to probably fall. I don't know from yours, but what early second.
I'm in a league right now. The 208 is on the clock. Marvin Mims is still there. I am hammering trade offers as we speak. I'm trying to get the two because Mims and Musgrave are both there. Yeah, this is a 1.75 tight end premium league, and I am trying to get up to because the guy at the 208, he and I are kind of like, we're friends. He's a great guy, but we kind of have like that rivalry thing going on. So I doubt he's going to make a move for me. So I am sending him some offers because I don't ever not send offers, but I'm sending him some offers, and I'm sending the guys at 209 some offers as well, because I figure if I get either one of these guys to say yes to a similar offer, I'm going to be ecstatic in this league where I was the defending champion, able to walk away with just 3 guys in this class that I absolutely love in this particular draft. I'll walk away with Levis, I'll walk away with Roshan, and hopefully one of these 2 guys. But I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
No, that's fine, mate. And the fact that I didn't think he'd fall that far, to be honest, in drafts. But
dude, I'm telling you,
I'm learning as I'm going along. So
they're blinded by Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. They can't get past that.
That's exactly what I was just going to say to you. That's why they're not. They look at he's not getting it over these 2 guys. And people have gone off Russell Wilson as a quarterback. Probably haven't kept up with the fact that they moved up to get him in Denver. they haven't read that, but yeah, that's great to know. I'm more interested, honestly, mate. Like, we all have taxi squads. Well, most of us have taxi squads. I hope you if you've got a league, you have taxi squads. So mate, I really like trying to find sort of guys later, guys that were probably taken. Who have I got? A few guys here. Probably the earliest guy was taken in the 4th, but I've got Dontavian Wicks, who went to the Packers. These are guys that I'll look, in maybe round 4, maybe if you have 5 or 6 rounds. I don't know what people's rookie drafts are like. Someone like him, Grant DeBosi, who the Packers also took. These are guys that I've marked in that I'd like to get and put them on my taxi squad and see what happens. And there's even a couple of undrafted free agents that I liked that obviously didn't get picked up. And one of them is just a little guy by Keelan Harris. The Falcons went and picked him up. He's out of Oklahoma Baptist, so just a small school. Obviously, a really religious kid, hence why he played where he did and stayed there. Just these guys, like everybody has, or you might be able to get him off waivers after the end of your draft. These are the type of guy. Charlie Jones, who's went to the Bengals. Mate,
I love Charlie Jones.
Perfect slot guy for the Bengals. They need that position.
He is a taxi squad stash deluxe because after this season, they're not going to be able to keep Chase, Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, who's probably the odd man out. Tyler Boyd, who can operate really niftily, if that's not even a word, who can have a nifty game that we could really like is Charlie Jones. I have a guy that I really like. Now, he went in the 3rd round. He was like the 94th overall pick in the draft, and that's Michael Wilson. Wide receiver out of Stanford. I like guys that do the opposite of what everybody else does. They got a bunch of small dudes. They got Marquise Brown. They got Rondale Moore. They've got Greg Dortch. He's a guy who's big. And, if you watch Kyler, he's not like a lot of mobile quarterbacks where he peppers the ball over the middle of the field because he's shorter. But if they end up, because they keep going back and forth about, are we keeping DeAndre? Are we not keeping DeAndre? They kind of go back and forth. But what a great mentor for a guy like, Michael Wilson to learn from. Super smart kid. They don't let dum-dums into Stanford. Great draft capital. I'm glad he got day 3. I'm not ready to declare him my Cooper Cup or Terry McLaurin, that Senior Bowl standout that really I fell in love with, that went in the 3rd round. But I got to tell you, man, he's close. What are some of your thoughts on Michael Wilson? Because you've always had a keen eye as it relates to the wide receiver position.
Oh, mate, I've always liked the guys that are 6'2" plus. I've seemed to have an affinity with those. And I've tried to curb that lately, and then I go for Zay Flowers. He's like 5'10", but that's cool. He didn't run that great at the combine, did he? He's not the quickest dude. A 4.58, 40 at the combine.
I'll pull that up for you.
Struggled to stay healthy in college, mate. 14 games in 3 seasons is not. What do they say? If you can't stay healthy in college, you're not going to do it in the pros.
I said that about Drake London, and I was proven wrong. Drake London never played more than 8 games in a college season, and that son of a bitch come out in Atlanta this year and played every darn game that they played. From an athletic standpoint,
they didn't throw the ball to him too much, though. Maybe that's why we're throwing it around.
TJ Houshmandzadeh said the guy's a dog. If Hoosh says you're a dog, you're probably a dog.
Look, I've written down here, great high pointer, strong hands, mate, great hesitation on his route, sells a route beautifully, physical receiver, everything within catchable distance, he will haul in, everything. You won't see him drop anything that he can reach. There wasn't a lot of footage on him, unfortunately, when I watched him. I did have at the combine, his tracking of the football was a little bit off. He was switching shoulders a little bit too much for my liking, looking over each shoulder. and just lost the football. But outside of that, mate, you put it up, and let's face it, as you said, Kyler Murray's not throwing like a normal quarterback. So he just has to get within range of this guy, and he's going to haul it in.
Well, that's what you need, right? Because when you throw on the run, you're not as accurate as when you throw flat-footed.
Yep.
So you need a guy with a good catch radius. I have his athletic measurables for you. He did run a 4.58 at the combine. His burst score, which is a combination of vertical and broad jump, he's a 76th percentile athlete. Good agility score, 80th percentile athlete, and then catch radius is 10 feet. I guess 10 feet and an inch, I suppose. And that's 73rd percentile.
Okay.
So, out of the class, Player Profiler has him as the 12th most athletic wide receiver out of 72. And, so that's not bad. He's in that top 6 from an athletic standpoint. You're right. He does need to stay healthy. But this is a dude, man. I'm telling you, if he stays healthy, he could be a sneaky grab, like in the late 3rd, early 4th of rookie drafts, especially Superflex.
And let's face it, well, what's his competition? Because no one expects Hopkins to be there.
I mean, even if he is, great. Let this guy learn from DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins didn't set the world on fire from an athletic standpoint.
No, not
all
at
right.
all.
One more guy, G. One more guy. Give me a guy who's going to break out and help us in 2023. Now, I'm not putting you on the spot. I don't want you to give me like James Robinson. It's cool if you do, because James Robinson as a rookie broke out and was like the RB5 or 6 as a rookie.
Yep.
With just amazing. So I'm not asking you to hit that level of a home run, but give us a guy that maybe we can get a little bit of use out of early in their rookie campaign.
Look, there's guys like I'm a big Cedric Tillman fan. I don't like where he landed, unfortunately, at the Browns. Could have ended up in a better spot with less good talent around him. But look, I put Jonathan Mingo down just because of the quarterback he got, and mate, look who's around him. He could be the best receiver on that team as a rookie. Like I said, I put the little 3 or 4 word bit at the end after watching this guy, and next to his name, I wrote NFL ready. He's ready to go. Built for the NFL is actually what I wrote.
If again, I've always used it, so don't say, well, now Memphis is with Player Profiler. He mentions it all the damn time. Right. No, I've been mentioning it for the last 6 years on this podcast. I use Player Profiler. But if you go there and look at his athletic measurables and compare them to Michael Pittman, they're pretty similar guys. And do you remember who drafted and used Michael Pittman at a real good clip in Indianapolis? Oh, what do you know? It was Frank Reich.
Yep.
I'm telling you.
And I'm a Pittman fan as well. Like in our league, I think I have Pittman. Possibly, I might have traded him now, but I did have him.
But you get the point, though. I mean, this is the kind of guy, and you know what? Maybe next year, let's just say hypothetically Carolina's bad. I don't think that's a huge stretch for, a rookie quarterback, even though that is a pretty shitty division. But let's say they finish in like the top 5 next year. Well, then that would suck. They don't have their own rookie pick, so they couldn't draft Marvin Harrison Jr. But this is the kind of roster that is right there in that range where I think he's got Michael Pittman, T. Higgins type vibes to him. Okay. I don't know that he's like a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. And people will be like, well, Memphis, how can you say T. Higgins? He's a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty rankings. Yeah, the bad ones. His best season as a pro is like wide receiver 15. I'm not ready to anoint a guy who's the second wide receiver on his own team a wide receiver 1 who A, has never done it, and B, is a wide receiver 2 in Dynasty for me. So that's my opinion. It's what it's worth. But I see Johnny Mingo in that range as well. I think that's a very good call. Can I give you mine?
Yeah, look, like with Mingo, he's a physical receiver. Like he's not going to create separation. He needs to work his releases off the line against press coverage. But mate, he's going to devastate you in the middle of the field. That's where he's going to make his bread and butter, I think. Routes moving across the middle. That's where he's going to kill it.
I agree. Let me ask you about my guy, and I'll get you out of here. We got the War Games guys coming up behind us. Let me ask you about my guy. What do you think about Kendre Miller? I think that guy can contribute right away between a potential Alvin Kamara suspension and a pretty good offense. I mean, I know he's been banged up. We've not seen a ton of measurables, but I think he could be pressed into action pretty early in the vein of a Dameon Pierce or the aforementioned James Robinson. Do I think he finishes as an RB1? No. Do I think there'll be weeks, especially like, Halloween on, where, he's starting to see a larger role? Maybe I do. What do you think about my man, Kendre Miller?
I put next to him, I put a question mark when I watched him because I didn't know what to make of him. There's so many things I like about him, and there's so many things that I don't like he does as a running back. And I'm trying to work out which one overrides the other one to take him. He's got a great opportunity the first 6 weeks. He runs a little bit upright for me, but there's been plenty of running backs that have proved that doesn't matter. When he hits the hole, mate, his legs and he just goes everywhere. He just bounces off tacklers. He lacks real burst. Doesn't have that house called speed. But mate, what running backs do? You don't want them if they can get you 10 or 15 yards on a good carry. Mate, you're wrapped with that. If that's what if they're only going to give you 7 and you get 10, that's great. I actually said he's a really patient guy. He's very aware of everybody that's around him, which is great, especially in the hustle and bustle of running between tackles. What else did I say about him? And I've read, mate, he's one of these guys that you watch play and you go, mate, is he coated in Teflon? Like he has that
He's slippery. And he ran Zach Evans out of town.
Sorry?
I said he ran Zach Evans out of town in TCU. Yeah. He sent him to Ole Miss. They had one of those old school pro wrestling loser leaves town matches. And you saw who left town.
Yeah, I don't. There's few things when he runs, puts his pad level down to take contact, he drops his head and looks at the ground. I don't like that. Not from the injury risk. Is it, mate? You've pretty much once you put your head down, you've given up the fact that I'm just going to get contact and I'm going down. And sometimes he runs through the hole sideways, and that's a part that I saw a few times. Like when contact, instead of hitting the front on, he'll turn sideways, and that's sort of, it's not giving up, but it's very hard then to square your shoulders up and head downhill again. So there's just these great things that I like about him, and there's this handful of stuff that I don't. And he'll work on that. He'll improve. You get to the pros and they'll improve you. So,
well,
for a late round guy for sure.
There you go. He went at the draft I've been talking about, the Dynasty Podcasters League. He went in the mid-second. Okay. I think he went 206, 207, and I think that's a great spot for him. Okay. I don't know why. I think if he'd had combine measurables, you mentioned he didn't have a lot of good combine metrics because, he had an MCL. I think it was an MCL repair right after the national championship game, and that's really not. But, a lot of guys don't perform at the combine, and those guys typically don't get day 2 NFL draft capital. So I'm stoked on him, man, but I'm really appreciative that you stopped by. In all sincerity, I know this is the middle of the workday for you. There's a 14-hour time difference between here in the States and just there outside of Melbourne where you reside, but I appreciate you jumping on.
That's right. Hey, mate, can I just give you someone I was really pissed off about their landing spot?
The floor is yours.
Mate, Kenny McIntosh.
Okay.
Out of Georgia. Like, I really liked what I saw out of a guy. Like he's not going to be a number 1 guy, but then he went and was the second pick of the Seahawks, the second running back they took after Charbonnet. And I just thought that's just mate, that's just the end of seeing him for a while, for sure. Unless there's an injury or a couple. I just he ran behind a really good O line, but I just he had all these just. He's not at NFL level yet, but he could be a really good serviceable guy. He's not someone you could use in a pinch. Just a really disappointing landing spot.
So I'll just say this. From an athletic standpoint, he was the 32nd most athletic running back out of 43, and that's not the end all. He ran a 4.62. He is he literally severely lacks in speed, burst, and agility, and he didn't hit the bench press. So I will just say this. His most recent offensive coordinator is now the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. Yep. And the Baltimore Ravens passed on him in the first round, the second round, the third round, the fourth round, the fifth round, the sixth. So here's a guy that you've worked with. We talked about that earlier, with these guys and, going to get their guys. And your OC let you pass by 7 times. He was just there with you. So I'm not too caught up on Kenny McIntosh. I'll tell you a sleeper.
I'm not caught up on him. I just like to see him, see where he landed.
You're rooting for the young man. You're rooting for him.
I'm just rooting for him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, say my guy like that's Dwayne McBride and Sean Tucker. Those are a couple of those late round dart throws that I like.
Sean Tucker, is he free agent? Has he been picked up by anybody?
The Buccaneers. And
did he like an ACL? Is that correct?
He had, I don't remember the exact injury. He just started getting cleared, and he's doing like his own Twitter combine. It's the damnedest thing ever. But that backfield outside of Rachaad White in Tampa Bay, it looks like it looks like a men's homeless shelter.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not good. I mean, it's Keyshawn Vaughn. Not to say that they couldn't sign a Zeke, but I think that's a team that's tanking for Caleb Williams. They passed on Will Levis, not that he's the next coming, but they passed on Will Levis. They're going to roll with Baker and Kyle Trask, and I think it's going to be a shit show in Tampa. And again, Sean Tucker, he's an injury away from being an injury away, so he's on my list. We've got the Dynasty War Games guys coming up right behind us. Man, I know you guys aren't doing a whole bunch, but they should be following the Aussie Guys NFL on YouTube, because that way when you guys go live, which for us here in the States, it's either like Saturday morning or like Saturday night. It's weird. Like you guys party down there.
You're either drinking when we're on, or you're getting over the hangover of drinking the night before. It's one or the other. But
it's a beautiful thing. But we'll see how life opens up your guys' schedule down there in Australia this season. And if not, you've always got a permanent guest role here on the Dynasty WarZone. You could always come in and talk football with us. You're not alone out there. We'll always have a spot for you. But man, I really appreciate you jumping on.
Nah, mate, more than welcome. It's been great. It's good. Now I got to get a slither my way back into work and hope the boss didn't notice I was gone.
Yeah, you can get back and try to get like that half day in before anybody catches wise. But that's my buddy Greg. Yeah, he's on Twitter, but just follow at Aussie Guys NFL. You can check him and his co-host AJ out there. 2 of the best in not only the land down under, but just 2 of the best around. Good people down there. But listen, we're going to get out of here on behalf of AJ and G, because AJ's not here, but G is. And on behalf of me, remember, here at the Dynasty WarZone, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll be back here Wednesday. Although if you're listening on Tuesday, you can go back and watch the podcast on YouTube. Just search Player Profiler, and the show dropped on Sunday. You can catch it there and subscribe while you're there. Talk to you guys later. Have a great week. Bye, G.